Greetings, this is promotion exam made easy. If you're a returning viewer, we say when, and if you are coming across this video for the first time, coming across this channel for the first time, we say you are welcome. And this is the promotion exam study made easy, where we simplify the method of studying, so whereby you can just play it and be listening. You can be doing some other thing or lying down comfortably, relaxing, and you just keep playing it, and you'll be learning so much from it than stressing your eyes reading through book all through. So this is the revised public service rule, which took effect in the year 2023. We've been treating it for a while now. So this particular video is on performance management system. A lot of people have been making requests for this video on performance management system. So previously we treated general definitions, appointments, another appointment. We had 3 episodes that covered everything. From there went to discipline, and under discipline we had 2 episodes that covered everything on discipline, and then leave with 1 episode covering everything on leave. And please know that everything we are doing here is as contained in the revised public service rule that took effect in the year 2023. So in this video, as I said earlier, we shall be treating performance management system, and the topics we shall be looking at: progress reports on officers on probation, performance management system for serving officers, annual performance management timeline, performance management cycle, appraisal for employees on approved absence, and performance appraisal committee, and then monitoring and evaluation. And please, before we proceed further, if you are here to click the subscribe button, maybe you are coming across the channel for the first time, or you've been coming across the channel enjoying it but yet to subscribe, please look around your screen. You will see subscribe written somewhere with a white background or a black background or any background, but you see subscribe written. Just kindly tap on it. The essence is for you to be able to have our materials, both the ones we've uploaded before and the forthcoming ones. So as soon as we upload it, YouTube we notify you, get notified, and you have the material on your page. That is the essence of it. You are not paying a dime for it. It's for your own good. And of course, if at the end of the video you find it worthy, kindly share it. Let your friends and colleagues also benefit from it. And also, your comment is very much important to us. So moving performance management system, already I've enumerated the topics we shall be looking at here. So starting with progress report on officers on probation. Progress reports are meant to provide, in respect of officers on probation or initial contract, a full record of each officer's work, conduct, and capabilities on which to judge his suitability for confirmation or re-engagement, whichever is appropriate. And to ensure that in cases where an officer's suitability for continued employment is in doubt, he is given timely warning of his faults and reasonable opportunity to correct them. Rendering permanent secretaries or heads of extraministerial offices are responsible for rendering progress reports at intervals of 6 months with effect from the date of first appointment. The final progress report shall be rendered no later than 2 months before an officer's probationary period or second tour of the contract is due. Then progress report on officers before leave. If for any reason an officer's probation period is due to expire at a time when he will be on leave, the final progress report shall be rendered no later than 2 months before he proceeds on such leave, in order that a decision as to the confirmation, deferment, confirmation, or termination of his appointment may be taken and communicated to him before he departs. In the case of an officer on contract, if an adverse opinion of his suitability has been formed before progress report is rendered, no later than 2 months before he so proceeds on such leave, it shall be communicated to him before he departs, so that the officer may have the opportunity of deciding before he departs whether in the light of the adverse opinion already formed, it is in his own interest to return. Final progress report. Permanent secretaries or heads of extraministerial offices shall address progress reports to the permanent secretary, Federal Civil Service Commission, or the permanent secretary career management office as appropriate under personnel and confidential cover. The final progress report rendered after 21 months service shall include a definite recommendation as to whether the officer's appointment should be confirmed or terminated, or whether his contract should be renewed. Accountability for PMS. Performance management system for serving officers. The performance management system shall replace the annual performance evaluation report (APA) for the federal public service. All federal ministries, extraministerial departments, and agencies are expected to comply with the provisions of this rule. Then definition. PMS shall be the tool by which goals and objectives shall be set for employees, and individual performance is tracked, assessed, and reported upon in the federal public service. The performance management system shall measurable output, performance objectives and targets of employees, as well as specified competencies, that is, the knowledge, skills, and personnel attributes needed to deliver job tasks and meet agreed targets. Performance management and training shall be result-oriented. The responsibility of reporting officer. It is essential for the general efficiency of the service that annual reports on officers shall be detailed and candid. Reporting officers must realize that their own capabilities are discernible from the reports they write on their subordinates, bearing in mind that they hold their offices as much as by virtue of their administrative as well as their professional abilities. Who to report? A reporting officer must not only be at least one substantive grade above the officer being reported on, but also be the immediate superior officer under whom the officer being reported on directly works. Where an officer has served in more than one department before his report is rendered, the reporting officer shall be the immediate superior officer under whom he worked for the substantial part of the normal period in report. Substantial part of the normal period a report shall cover. It is necessary that a countersigning officer should assess every report judiciously before countersigning. How to report? The substance of any adverse comment on an officer's work or conduct included in a report shall be conveyed to him in writing by the reporting permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office in sympathetic terms and with the objective of enabling and encouraging him to overcome his shortcomings. The fact that this action has been taken shall be stated in the report itself. A copy of the letter addressed to the officer as well as a copy of his acknowledgement should be attached to the report. The report during secondment. When an officer is seconded to another ministry or extraministerial office, the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office to whom he is seconded is responsible for furnishing the reports on the officer. The reports from corporations and states. Arrangements shall be made with corporations, states, or state-owned companies to which officers are seconded to furnish the reports on the officers so seconded as though such bodies were government departments. It shall be the responsibility of the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office from which an officer has been seconded to request the corporation, state, or state-owned company concerned 2 months before the due date to furnish the required report on appropriate annual report form which shall be supplied to the establishment for this purpose. Then the timeline. Annual performance management timeline. Performance management cycle shall run from January to December of every year and shall commence immediately after the leadership of each MDA has finalized their annual institutional and departmental goals and targets. The annual goal of each established post shall be set by the Department of Human Resource Management in collaboration with departments and units in the MDAs in this regard. The following shall be strictly adhered to. So in setting the goals, so the following: measurement of periodic performance. Appraisal processes will be used to determine how a staff has performed within a calendar year. 2. Key performance indicators shall be drawn and agreed upon by January of each year, and final appraisal shall be done by December of the same year. And then 3. Employees' performance results shall be the primary basis for determining employee development options, reward, sanctions, and other associated actions. Performance planning. Individual performance planning shall be done at the beginning of the performance management cycle. Job descriptions shall be available for each job and used to capture detailed job contents, including scope, reporting lines, etc. Performance expectations shall be used on the contents of job description. 3. Performance expectations shall the accounting officers and each head of department, which shall be cascaded down until annual performance goals and targets have been set for all employees in each MDA. These agreements, which consist of challenging but achievable tasks and performance targets derived from each MDA strategic objectives and plans, shall be documented in the program planning form, which shall be signed off by both the supervisor and his direct reports. Then 5. The supervisor and the employee shall also agree on the work performance actions, that is, the detailed actions required to achieve the targets and support requirements. The aim of this is to ensure that the employee understands the work that needs to be done and that the supervisor has clarity of the support he is meant to provide to each direct report to enable work performance. Performance monitoring. Agreed tasks and targets of employees will be subject to regular and critical performance reviews via appraisal/appraisee discussions to be held throughout the year in a process called performance monitoring. Performance monitoring shall be a continuous and transparent process. It shall serve as an honest, supportive mental exercise between an employee and his immediate supervisor. Performance monitoring shall be the responsibility of the immediate supervisor with whom the employee has had sufficient contact. A second opinion and endorsement of employees' performance monitoring assessment shall be required from the next direct supervisor. Performance monitoring discussions shall be captured in the monthly performance dialogue form and the quarterly performance review form. Then performance appraisal. Performance appraisals shall evaluate progress with achievements of targets on a periodic basis. Performance appraisal shall include self-appraisals and further appraisal by a supervisor or such individual saddled with this responsibility. The performance appraisal exercise shall be an interactive and transparent process between the employee and his superior. Performance appraisals are ongoing activities throughout the year, culminating in an annual end-of-year formal meeting to review the overall progress of employees' performance against their set objectives and targets. Towards the end of the annual performance year, formal performance evaluations of individual employees, that is the appraisal, shall be carried out by the appraiser in order to A. Discuss the appraiser's performance over the past year. B. Identify training and developmental needs. C. Address any other work-related issues. Then D. Review individuals' career aspirations. And then E. Identify further support needed by the appraiser. Then 3. Outcomes from the appraisal process shall be documented in the end-of-year performance appraisal form. Then 4. Employees will receive appraisal training to support their roles either as an appraiser and or as an appraiser where applicable. Then performance reward. There shall be a clear link between performance management outcomes or results and rewards. There shall be a clear link between performance management outcomes or results and rewards. This shall be a key component of the PMS. So 2. Employee performance shall largely be used in determining rewards and recognition prescribed in public service rule. 3. Performance incentives or bonuses shall be paid after the annual performance appraisal results have been fully signed off by MDAs and the head of the civil service of the Federation. 4. Outcomes from performance management processes shall serve as input for identifying performance gap closure actions that includes training and other forms of development. 5. Promotion decisions for design shall rely on demonstrated performance captured in performance appraisal results requirements as specified in extant promotion policies and guidelines of the Federal Civil Service Commission. Then 6. Performance appraisal results shall also, where applicable, feed into the implementation of performance improvement plans that consequences for underperforming individuals. Then underperformance. Underperformance is defined as an appraisal outcome which is below average and or not considered to be in line with expectation for respective job roles. Then 2. All underperformance shall be treated on a case-by-case basis. 3. Employees' performance become a matter of concern. Appraisers must take action promptly to gain an understanding of root causes via the periodic performance monitoring conversations during which they shall also proffer help. Then 4. Appraisers are required to do everything possible to ensure appraisees feel well supported throughout the annual performance cycle, and in cases where performance issues are of a very serious nature, in addition, performance improvement plan process shall be adopted. Then 5. Employees required to undergo performance improvement actions shall be notified in writing through a confidential process. Then 6. Gap closure interventions shall be jointly agreed by the appraiser and appraisee and captured in the performance improvement plan. Then 7. Implementation of the performance improvement plan actions shall be coordinated by the Director, Human Resource Management, in collaboration with the appraisers. Then 8. During and at the end of a performance improvement plan process period, individuals shall be given formal feedback on the status of their performance. whether significant in their noted in their performance, warranting subtension in retention in their current if other actions are warranted. Such actions or decisions shall be determined by the performance appraisal committee and shared with the individual. Then that takes us to employees on approved absence. Employees that have been away on approved absence for a part of the performance period shall use session with their supervisor upon their return to work, during which they shall set or review their performance targets for the rest of the year. 2. The rest of the performance management process steps shall then be applied throughout the remainder of the performance period. Appraisal by junior staff committee and senior staff committee. The senior staff committee and junior staff committees of MDAs shall, in addition to its responsibility for appointment, promotion and discipline, review and manage outcomes of annual performance for members of staff. However, escalated cases will be referred to the appraisal committee of Head of Civil Service of the Federation and Federal Civil Service Commission for resolution. 2. The committee shall ensure that appraisals are fair, objective, and effectively capture demonstrated performance as measured against specified annual performance expectations or targets. Then 3. The detailed criteria and weighting for appraisal of officers shall be as specified in the guideline to the performance management policy. 4. Appraisal of officers shall be conducted in strict confidence and shall comply with employee personnel data privacy protection rules and guidelines. 5. The committees shall meet from time to time to attend to performance appraisal related matters. Then taking us now to monitoring and evaluation. I think that should be the last lesson on this. In order to ensure compliance, performance management practice at all levels in Federal Civil Service Commission shall be monitored regularly for feedback and improvement by the central coordinating body. So central coordinating body is responsible for monitoring compliance. Then coordinating body. The central coordinating body responsible for monitoring effectiveness of the performance management process shall be domiciled in the office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation. Then record management. All records generated during any of the phases of the annual cycle are and shall remain the property of the federal government of Nigeria. All such shall be administered in line with good administrative document and data management practices. So that is the quiz. So please, for each question, before we see the answer, try on your own to evaluate yourself. Try to provide the answer before you finally see the answer. That will enable you to know how far you assimilated on this. So question 1, which of these is one of the uses of progress reports on officers on probation? A, to ensure that in case where an officer's suitability for promotion or advance he is given timely warning of his faults and reasonable opportunity to correct them. B, to provide in respect of officers on probation or initial contract a full record of the officer's work, conduct and capabilities on which to judge his suitability for promotion, and to ensure that in case where an officer's suitability for promotion is in doubt, he is given of his warning of his faults and reasonable opportunity to correct them. Then C, to provide in respect of officers on probation or initial contract a full record of the officer's work, conduct and capabilities on which to judge his suitability, confirmation, or re-engagement, whichever is applicable. And then D, to track officers' performance record and give timely warning of his faults and reasonable opportunity to correct them. So which is your correct answer? Before we quickly see the answer. So the correct answer on that, so the question says, which of these is one of the uses of progress reports on the officers on probation? So the use of it is to provide, in respect of officers on probation or initial contract, a full record of the officer's work, conduct and capabilities on which to judge his suitability for confirmation or re-engagement, whichever is applicable. Question 2. At what intervals of time shall progress reports on the officers on probation be rendered? A, 3 months interval, B, 4 months interval, C, 5 months intervals, then D, 6 month intervals. So note your answer. Question 3. What is the effective date to commence a progress report on an officer? A, 1st January preceding the date of first appointment, B, date of first appointment, C, first day officer is due for promotion, and D, the date of confirmation of appointment. Note your answer. Question 4. Which of these actions shall be taken on an officer whose suitability for continued employment is in doubt during probationary period or initial contract? A, he is given timely warning of his faults and reasonable opportunity to correct them. B, he is given 3 months notice of termination of appointment. C, his appointment will be terminated at the end of the probationary period. And then D, his appointment will be terminated before the end of the probationary period. So quickly looking at the correct answer. So from question 2 that says, at what intervals of time shall progress reports on officers on probation be rendered? So it shall be rendered at 6 months intervals. 6 months interval. That is option D. Then for question 3, what is the effective date to commence a progress report on officer? The effective date is the date of appointment, date of first appointment. So the progress report commences from the date of first appointment. Question 4, which of these actions shall be taken on an officer whose suitability for continued employment is in doubt during probationary period or initial contract? Of course, the action that will be taken is that he is given timely warning of his faults and reasonable opportunity to correct them. Question 5. Whose responsibility shall it be to render progress reports on officers on probation? A, Permanent Secretary or Head of Extraministerial Offices. B, Director of Human Resource Management. C, the officer's immediate supervisor. D, the Head of Department of the officer. Question 6. When shall the final progress report be rendered on officers on probation? A, not later than 3 months before an officer's probationary period or second tour of the contract is due to expire. B, 2 months before an officer's retirement or second tour of the office is due to retire. Then C, not later than 2 months before an officer's probationary period or second tour of office is due to retire. And then D, not later than 2 weeks to the expiration of the officer's probationary period. So quickly, your answers, let's confirm. So for question 5, the correct answer for the question that says, whose responsibility shall it be to render progress report on officers on probation at intervals? So it's the duty of permanent secretaries or head of extraministerial office. So permanent secretary or head of extraministerial offices renders the progress report on officers on probation at intervals. Then for questions, that is option A. Then for question 6, when shall the final progress report be rendered on officers on probation? It shall be rendered not later than 2 months before an officer's probationary period or second tour of office is due. That is option C. So 5 is A, 6 is C. So question 7, when shall the final progress report be rendered for an officer whose probationary period is due to expire at a time when he will be on leave? So in this case now, the officer will be on leave at the time his probationary period will be expired. So when shall the final progress report be rendered? A, not later than 2 months before the expiration of the probationary period. B, the last month before he proceeds on leave. C, not later than 3 months before he proceeds on leave. And of course, D, not later than 2 months before he proceeds on such leave. So question 8, when can a decision as to the confirmation, deferment of confirmation, or termination of appointment be taken and communicated to an officer who will be on leave before the expiration of the probation period? A, before he departs for leave. B, during his leave. C, at his return from leave. And then D, not less than a week to the expiration of his leave. So note your answers. Question 9. If an adverse opinion of the suitability of an officer on contract has been formed before progress report is rendered, not later than 2 months before he so proceeds on leave, so be communicated. Can he be communicated to him? So quickly, A, is it at his return from the leave, or during his leave period, or before he departs, or not less than a week to the expiration of his leave? So quickly, let's look at the answers. For question 7, confirm your own answers. So when shall the final progress report be rendered for an officer whose probationary period at a time when he will be on leave? So that will be the not later than 2 months before the not later than 2 months before he proceeds on such leave. Yes. So his correct option is D for question 7. So the final progress report for officer that will be on leave during the expiration of the probationary period shall be rendered not later than 2 months before he proceeds on such leave. Then 8 that says, when can a decision as to the confirmation or deferment of confirmation or termination of appointment be taken and communicated to an officer who will be on leave before the expiration? Of course, it will be communicated to him before he departs for leave. So it will be communicated to him before he departs for leave, so that on his own he can also plan himself whether he will decide to return or not, for him to take decision too. Then so for question 9 that says, if an adverse opinion of his suitability of an officer on contract, so the same thing too, it will also be communicated to him before he departs too, so that they also take decision whether to return. So question 10, whom shall the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office address progress report of officers to? So whom shall he address progress report of officers to? A, the permanent secretary, head of civil service of the federation, or the permanent secretary, career management office. B, the permanent secretary, federal civil service commission, or the permanent secretary, career management office. C, the permanent secretary, federal civil service commission, or the permanent secretary, head of civil service of the federation. And D, the secretary general of the federation or permanent secretary, career management office. 11, by what means shall the progress report of officers be addressed? By what means shall it be addressed? A, under open letter. B, under personnel memo. C, under restricted cover. And D, under personnel and confidential cover. So quickly, looking at the correct options to compare with your own. Question 10 that says, whom shall the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office address progress report of officers to? He shall address it to the permanent secretary, Federal Civil Service Commission, or the permanent secretary, career management office. So the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office shall address the progress report of officers to permanent secretary, Federal Civil Service Commission, or the permanent secretary, head of civil service of the or permanent secretary, career management office. So either permanent secretary, Federal Civil Service Commission, or permanent secretary, career management office. Then for question 11, by what means shall the progress reports of officers be addressed? It shall be addressed under personnel and confidential cover. Question 12, which of these shall be part of the content of the final progress report rendered after 21 months service of officer? That means after the probationary period. So which of these shall be part of the content of the progress report rendered after the probationary period, which is 21 months of service. A. Definite recommendation as to where the officer is most competent. B. Definite recommendation as to the weaknesses of the officer. C. A definite recommendation as to whether the officer's appointment should be confirmed or terminated, or whether his contract should be renewed. And then D. A definite recommendation as to whether the officers should be advanced. Question 13. Which of the following statement is correct? A. The performance management system (PMS) shall replace promotion examination for junior officer. B. The performance management system (PMS) shall replace the annual performance evaluation report (APA) for the Federal Public Service. C. Officers on probation are exempted from the performance management system. And then D. The performance management system shall be used simultaneously with the annual performance evaluation report APA for the Federal Public Service. So quickly, the correct options. So compare with your own. So for question 12, which of these shall be part of the content of the final progress report? Of course, the final progress report after the probation period of 21 months shall contain a definite recommendation on as to whether the officer's appointment should be confirmed or terminated, or whether his contract should be renewed. So it should contain this. The final report should contain it. So recommendation of whether confirming or terminating the appointment, or renewing if it's for or renewing contract for officers on contract basis. Then for question 13, that is option C. For question 13, which of the following statement is correct? Of course, the performance management system shall now replace the annual performance evaluation report, that is APA. So PMS is to be used to replace APA, that is option B. So question 14, which of these best defines performance management system? So definition of performance management system. A. It is the tool by which goals and objectives shall be set for employees, and individual performance is tracked, assessed, and reported upon in the Federal Public Service. B. It is an instrument for all federal ministries, extraministerial departments, and agencies are required to abide with for promotion of officers. C. It is a tool by which strengths and weaknesses of officers in the public services are tracked. Then D. It is a tool for determining the eligibility of public servants for promotion. Question 15. Which of these is not the focus of PMS? Which is not the focus of PMS? A. Measurable outcome, that is performance objectives and targets of employees. Then B. Specified competencies, that is knowledge, skills, and personal attributes needed to deliver job tasks and meet agreed targets. Then C. Performance management and training shall be result-oriented. And then D. The posting of public officers and responsibilities assigned. So quickly confirming your own answers. So for question 14, that says which of these best define performance management system? Of course, performance management system is a tool by which goals and objectives shall be set for employees, and individual performances is tracked, assessed, and reported upon in the Federal Public Service. That is option A. So PMS is a tool by which goals and objectives shall be set for employees, and individual performances is tracked, assessed, and reported upon in Federal Public Service. Option A. Then for question 15, that says which of these is not the focus of PMS? Now, A says measurable outcome. Of course, measurable outcome is a focus of the PMS. So it's one of their focus. Then B, specified competence. Of course, specified competencies is also one of the focus of PMS. Then C, performance management and training shall be result. Of course, it shall be result oriented. So this is also one of the focus. So meaning it's now D. So D that says posting of public officers and responsibilities assigned. No. So D is not the focus of PMS. So question 14 is A. Yes, 15 is D. So going to question 16 now. Which of these is true about reporting officer? Which of this is true? So which shall be a reporting officer? A, he is capable enough to exercise authority over the subordinate. B, he holds his offices by virtue of choice. C, his own capabilities are discernible from the reports they write on their subordinates. So which is true about reporting officer? Then D, the report he makes shall be treated as confidential. Then 17, who can be the reporting officer? Yes, who is the reporting officer? Who can be the reporting officer? A, must be at least one substantive grade above the officer being reported on, and the immediate superior officer under whom the officer being reported on directly works. B, the departmental head of the officer being reported. C, any officer that is at least one grade level ahead of the officer being reported on. And then D, an officer in the same job schedule that is at least one substantive grade level ahead of the officer being reported on, not necessarily the immediate superior. So quickly check your answers. So for question 16, that says which of this is true about reporting officer? So the correct option is that his own capabilities are discernible from the reports he writes on his subordinate. So this should be he and his. So the reporting officer's own capabilities are discernible from the report he writes on his subordinate. So their own capabilities are discernible from the reports they write on their subordinates for the reporting officers. Then 17, who can be the reporting officer? And of course, the reporting officer, one, must be at least one grade level ahead, and of course it must also be the superior the reporting officer work directly with. So that is option A. So must be at least one substantive grade level above the officer being reported on, and the immediate superior officer under whom the officer being reported on works directly with. So this is the correct one. So it must be at least one grade level, and the officer must also be working directly under him. Question 18. How can the substance of any adverse comment on an officer's work or conduct included in a report be treated? A, it shall be kept confidential and a warning letter to the concerned officer to improve. B, the reporting permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office shall convey it to him in writing in sympathetic terms and with the objective of enabling and encouraging him to overcome his shortcomings. C, a committee shall be set up and the officer invited for investigation. D, the normal procedure for general inefficiency shall be followed. Question 19. When an officer is seconded to another ministry or extraministerial office, who is responsible to furnish the report on the officer? A, the permanent secretary, head of extraministerial office of his releasing office. B, the director of human resource management of his parent ministry. C, the head of human resource of the office he is seconded to. And then D, the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office to whom he is seconded. So quickly cross-check your answers. So for question 18, that says how can the substance of any adverse comment on an officer's work or conduct included in a report be treated? Of course, the permanent secretary will have to communicate to the officer in writing. Yes, so the reporting permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office shall convey it to him in writing in sympathetic terms and with the objective of enabling and encouraging him to overcome his shortcomings. Then for question 19, that says when an officer is seconded to another ministry or extraministerial office, who is responsible to furnish the report on the officer? Of course, the person responsible is the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office to whom he is seconded to. That is option D. So 18B, 19D. Question 20. When the substance of any adverse comment on an officer's work or conduct included in a report has been conveyed to him in writing in sympathetic terms and with the objective of enabling and encouraging him to overcome his shortcomings. All of these shall be applicable except, so all of these have to be applicable except A, the fact that it has been conveyed to him shall be stated in the PMSEC or head of examinatory office report. Of course, this is applicable. Then B, a copy of the letter addressed to the officer shall be attached, of course, to show actually that he has been communicated. So a copy of the letter addressed to him shall be attached in the head of, so this is also applicable. Then C, the response from the officer shall be attached to the permanent secretary or head of examinatory report itself. No. So this is not applicable because the letter does not even require him to respond. So this is not applicable. Then D, let's also look. This says a copy of the officer's acknowledgement should be attached to the permanent secretary of course, this is applicable. So yes, because the PMSEC we have to communicate to the officer, and to prove that the letter he wrote to the officer will be there, and to also ensure that the officer receive it. That's the essence of the acknowledgement from the officer, also to be attached to the PMSEC report. So the only one that is not applicable is the response of the officer. No, shall be attached to, no, because it does not need to respond either. So question 21, what is the timeline of a performance management cycle? A, runs from January to December of every year. B, runs for 12 calendar months. And C, July to June every year. And then runs from December to, so which of every year? So which of them is the correct one? So okay, we've already seen the correct answer to question 20. So we say the correct one is the response. Every other one is applicable apart from option C that says response from the officer shall be attached. No. So this one now, the correct option for the timeline is that it runs from January to December of every year. So it runs from PMS cycle, runs from January to December every year. That is option A. Question 22. When is performance management cycle expected to commence each year? When is performance management cycle expected to commence each year? So A, 1st January each year. B, immediately after the leadership of each MDA has finalized their annual institutional and departmental goals and targets. Then C, immediately at the beginning of the year's annual project. And then D, immediately after each year's annual budget is finalized. Question 22. Whose responsibility shall it be to set the annual goal of each established post? A, the permanent secretary / head of examination office in collaboration with department units in the MDS. B, the permanent secretary or head of examination office in collaboration with Department of Human Resource Management. Then C, the divisional head in collaboration with the Department of Human Resource Management. And D, the Department of Human Resource Management in collaboration with department units in the MDS. So quickly cross-check your answer. So the correct option for question 22 that says when is performance management cycle expected to commence each year? Of course, it will commence January, but it is immediately after the leadership of each MDA has finalized their annual institutional and departmental goals and targets. So it's expected that the leadership will finalize their annual goal and institutional department goals and targets in January. So immediately they finalize that, then the annual cycle commences. That is option B. Then for question 23, whose responsibility shall it be to set the annual goals? So the correct option is D, the Department of Human Resource Management in collaboration of departments / units in the MDS. So we set the annual goals of each established post. Department of Human Resource in collaboration with department units and goals. Then question 24, which of the following is correct on progress reports of officers seconded to corporations, states or state-owned companies? So which of the following is correct? A, the permanent secretary or head of the extraministerial office from which the officer has been seconded shall make arrangements with the establishment to furnish the reports on the appropriate annual report forms which shall be supplied to the establishment for this purpose as though such bodies were government departments. B, the MDA from which the officer is seconded shall give the progress report of the officer. C, the seconded corporations, states or state-owned companies utilize the reports within their jurisdiction. And then D, the Director of Human Resources writes to the seconded corporations, state or state-owned companies to request for the officer's report. So question 25, whose responsibility shall it be to ensure the successful implementation of the PMS across all levels of officers at every federal public service institution? To ensure the implementation. A, the accounting officer. B, the head of human resource management. Then C, the departmental directors. And then D, the unit heads. So quickly cross-checking your answers with the correct one. So question 24, which of the following is correct on progress report of officers seconded to corporation? Of course, the correct one is that the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office from which the officer has been seconded shall make arrangements with the establishment to furnish the reports on the appropriate annual report forms which shall be supplied to the establishment for this. So it's the responsibility of permanent secretary to arrange with the corporation or state or the companies the officer is seconded to. That is option A. Then for question 25, that says whose responsibility shall it be to ensure the successful implementation? Of course, that will be the accounting officer. Accounting officer will ensure the successful implementation. Then question 26, in setting the goals and targets of each MDA, the following shall be strictly adhered to. So in setting the goals, let's look at. So A, key performance indicators shall be drawn and agreed upon by January of each year, and final appraisal shall be done by December of the same year. Of course, this is true. In setting the goals, this shall be adhered to. The key performance indicators shall be agreed upon by January of each year, and of course, final appraisal. Of course, this is part of it. Then B, employees' performance results shall be the primary basis for determining employee development options, rewards, sanctions, and other associated actions. Of course, this will also be adhered to in setting the goal. So this one will also be adhered to. So we are looking for the one that is not adhered to. So C, the leadership positions of the officers are the MDS and responsibility of each officer. No. So this has nothing to do. So this is not part of it. So this shall not be adhered to. YD said measurement of periodic performance appraisal processes will be used to determine how a staff has performed within a calendar. Of course, this will also be adhered to. So the only one that will not be adhered to is C that says the leadership position of the officers at MDS and the responsibilities of each officer. So quickly, question 27. The Director of Human Resources shall be responsible for the following. So functions of Director of Human Resources. Except, so A, for the proper execution of the annual performance cycle process. No, this is not his function. So B, coordinate efforts for determining rewards and recognition incentives for each individual based on demonstrated and rated performance. Of course, that one is true. It's his responsibility. Then C, coordinate efforts for determining developmental needs and other associated recommendations for each individual based on rated performance. Of course, this is also his responsibility. Then YD say prepare annual performance management reports. Of course, for the accounting officer at the end of each cycle. Of course, the Director of Human Resources also does this. So the only one that he does not do is I think we saw it before. Coordinate effort for determining development and is okay. So coordinate efforts for determining rewards and recognition of incentive for each individual and for the proper execution of no. Director of Human Resources is not the one in charge of execution. He's the accounting officer. So except this, he's in charge of every other one except for the proper execution of the annual performance cycle processes. So that is A. Question 28. In the PMS cycle, whose responsibility shall it be to ensure the execution of annual performance cycle processes and that appropriate complaints handling processes related to the annual performance management cycle are in place? I think we've seen that. So Director of Human Resource, the accounting officer, each departmental director, then the head of service of the federation. So make your choice. Question 29. In performance planning, when can individual performance planning be done? So in performance planning, when can individual performance planning be done? A, at the end of the previous performance management cycle. B, at the beginning of every year. C, at the beginning of the performance management cycle. And then D, first day of every June. Question 30. Performance expectations shall be agreed between who and who, and shall be cascaded downwards until annual performance goals and targets have been set for all employees in each MDA. So quickly, so is it between the accounting officer and each head of department? Is it between the accounting officer and head of human resource management? Is it between each head of department and each head of unit, or head of human resource management and each head of department? So quickly confirm your answers. So for question 28, that says, in the performance cycle, whose responsibility shall it be to ensure the execution of annual performance cycle processes and that appropriate complaints handling processes related to the annual performance management cycle are in place? So it's the responsibility of the accounting officer. That is option B. Why for question 29, that says, in performance planning, when can individual performance planning be done? It will be done at the beginning of the performance management cycle. Why for question 30, that says, performance expectations shall be agreed between who and who? Shall be agreed between the accounting officers and each head of department, and shall be cascaded downwards until annual performance goals and targets have been set. So the performance expectations is between the accounting officer and head of department. So 31. Performance expectations shall be based on the contents of job description, and each job description shall be used to capture details of all of the following except. So what does job description capture and who? So A, let's look at the reporting lines. Of course, job description captures the reporting lines. B, of course, it captures also the responsibilities. C, of course, it also captures the scope. So job description, as we read in the lesson, captures the reporting line, the responsibility, and the scope. So performance, no, it does not capture performance. The job description does not capture performance. So 32, what is performance monitoring? So A, it is a regular and critical performance reviews of agreed tasks and targets of employees via appraisal or appraisee discussions held throughout the year. B, it is a regular scorecard on the performance of officers. B, annual evaluation of the performance of officers. And D, the process of measuring the strengths and weaknesses of officers. Question 33. Who is responsible for performance monitoring? Who is responsible for performance monitoring? A, the departmental director with whom the employee has had sufficient contact. B, the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office of the employee. C, the immediate supervisor with whom the employee has had sufficient contact. And D, the divisional head with whom the employee has had sufficient contact. So quickly cross-check your answers. So for question 31 that says performance expectations shall be based on contents of job description, and each job description shall be used to capture details of all of this except performance. It's only performance it does not capture, but it captures scope, captures responsibility, and captures reporting lines. Then question 32, that is option D. Question 32 that says what is performance monitoring? And of course, performance monitoring is a regular and critical performance reviews of agreed tasks and targets of employees via appraisal or appraisal discussions held throughout the year. So that is performance monitoring. The regular and critical performance reviews of agreed tasks and targets of employees via appraisal or appraisal discussion held throughout the year. That is option A. Then for question 33, who is responsible for performance monitoring? Of course, performance monitoring is done by the supervisor with whom the employee has had sufficient contact. Question 34. A second opinion and endorsement of employees performing monitoring assessments shall be required from, that is the countersigning officer, shall be required from A, the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office. B, the next direct supervisor after the immediate supervisor. C, the head of department of the employee. And C, an officer of 2 grade levels above the employee. 35. Which of these is not true about performance monitoring? A, it shall be a continuous, interactive, and transparent process. B, the aim of performance monitoring is to ensure strict adherence to duties. C, it shall serve as an honest, supportive, and developmental employee and his immediate supervisor. Then D, performance monitoring discussions shall be captured in the monthly performance dialogue form and the quarterly performance review. Question 36. Where the performance agreements consisting of challenging but achievable tasks and performance targets derived from each MDA strategic objectives and plans be documented. So quickly cross-check your answer. So for question 14 that says second opinion and endorsement of employees performance monitoring assessment shall be required from, let me see, the next direct supervisor after the immediate supervisor. So it shall be required from the next direct supervisor. So question 35 that says which of that is option B. So question 35, which of these is not true about performance monitoring? 1, it shall be continuous. Of course, it is continuous and it's interactive and it's transparent. B, the performance monitoring is to ensure strict. No, it is not so. So this is not true. It's not to ensure strict adherence to duties. No, but C, it shall serve as an honest, supportive, and developmental exercise between an employee and his immediate supervisor. That is true. This is true about performance monitoring. And the performance monitoring discussion shall be captured in the monthly performance dialogue form and the quarterly. Yeah, this is also true. So the only one is that it is not to ensure strict adherence to duty. That is option B. So 34 is A, 35 is B. Then for question 36, okay, where shall the performance agreements consisting of challenging but achievable tasks and performance targets derived from each MDA strategic plans and be documented? Of course, it shall be documented in the performance planning form. That is C. Shall be documented in performance planning form. So B, B, C. B. So next 37. Who shall be the signatories to the performance agreement derived from each MDA strategic objectives and plans? A. Supervisor and his direct reports. B. The head of the department and the supervisor. C. The employee reported on and his head of department. D. Head of department and head of human resource. Question 38. In PMS, why do the supervisor and the employee have to agree on the work performance actions? That is the detailed actions required to achieve the targets and support requirements. A. To enable the supervisor know the areas to supervise. B. To enable good rating. That should be good. To enable good rating of the employee. C. To ensure that both the supervisor and employee have mutual understanding. And then D. To ensure that the employee understands the work that needs to be done and that the supervisor has clarity of the support he is meant to provide to each direct report to enable work performance. So quickly verify your own answers. So for question 37, that says, who shall be the signatories to the performance agreement derived from each MDA strategic objectives? So who are the signatories? So the signatories are the supervisor and his direct reports. Then for question 38, that says, in PMS, why do the supervisor and the employee have to agree on the work performance actions? So they have to agree so that actually each person actually understands, so that the employee understands the work that needs to be done. And then the supervisor also will have a clarity of the support he is meant to provide to the direct report to enable work performance. That is option D. Question 39. Which of the following statement is incorrect with regards to appraisal? Which is incorrect? Performance appraisal. A. Performance appraisal. A. Performance appraisal shall include self-appraisals and further appraisal by a supervisor or such individual saddled with this responsibility. This is applicable. B. The performance appraisal exercise shall be an interactive and transparent process between the employee and his immediate supervisor. Of course, this is also applicable. C. Performance appraisal is an activity that holds only once at the end of the year with a formal meeting to review the overall progress of employees' performance against their set goal. No, this is the whole meeting time to time, not once a year. So this is not applicable. Performance appraisal is an activity that holds from time to time, not once a year. Then D. Performance appraisal shall be done to evaluate progress with achievement. Of course, this is true of targets on a periodic basis. Yes. So it's C. Then 40 says the promotion decisions for deserving officers shall rely on all of the promotion decision for deserving officers shall rely on all of this except A. The accomplishment of work schedule. No. B. Demonstrated performance captured in performance appraisal result. Of course, it shall rely on this. Then C. The requirements as specified in extant promotion policies. Of course, this is also required. Then D. Guidelines of the Federal Civil Service Commission. Of course, that is applicable also. So it's only A. The accomplishment of work schedule. No. So the promotion decision for deserving officers shall rely on all this except the accomplishment of the work schedule. That is option A. So 39 is C. Performance appraisal is an activity that holds it does not hold once a year. It holds from time to time. So question 41. Which of these is or are not one of the reasons for carrying out formal performance evaluations of individual employees or appraisers towards the end of the annual performance year by the appraiser? So which is not one of the reasons for carrying out that? A. Discuss the appraiser's performance over one of the reasons. This is one of the reasons for carrying out performance evaluation. Then B. Address any other work-related issues. Of course, this is also one of the reasons. 3. Review individuals' career aspirations. This is also one of the reasons. Then 4. Identify training and developmental needs. Of course, this is also one of the reasons. And of course, 5, identify further support needed by the appraisee. Of course, is also one of the reasons. So it's like all of them are all the reasons. So none of them. So, but the question says which of these is or are not one of the reasons. So, but all of them are the reasons. So the correct option should be none of the above, because they are all reasons for carrying out the formal performance evaluation. So is to discuss the appraiser's performance over the past year, also address any other work related issues, and also review individuals' career aspiration, and also identify the training and developmental needs, and of course identify further support needed by the appraisee. So they are all applicable. So question 42, what shall largely be used in determining rewards and recognition of employees as prescribed in the public service rule? A, employee regularity to work. B, seniority. C, employee performance. And D, employee schedule of duties. Question 43, one of the key components of the PMS is A, performance improvement. B, identifying key weaknesses of the employee. C, a clear link between performance management outcomes and results and rewards. And then D, enabling employees performance at their enabling employees perform at their own pace. So quickly confirm your own answers. So for question 41, that say which of these is not one of the reasons for carrying out. I think we've seen this, say that none of the above, because all of them are reasons. So it's none of the above. While for question 42, what shall largely be used in determining rewards and recognition of employees as prescribed in public service? Of course, is the employee's performance. The performance shall be used for determining the reward. While for question 43, one of the key components of the PMS is a clear link between performance management outcomes and results and rewards. So there should be a clear link between the performance and the results and rewards. So that is option C. Question 44. Performance incentives or bonuses shall be paid after the annual performance appraisal results have been fully signed by A, the accounting officers of the respective MDAs and the head of the department of the officer. B, the accounting officers of respective MDA and head of the civil service of the federation. C, the accounting officers of respective MDAs and the head of the Federal Civil Service Commission. C, D, the head of civil service of the federation and the head of the Federal Civil Service Commission. So for 45, which of these best defines underperformance? A, the outcome of an appraisal. The outcome of an appraisal having more employees falling within the same range. B. So which best describe underperformance? B, it is a performance appraisal that is below the excellent level. C, it is a performance performed under stress due to the urgency of this assignment. And D, it is an appraisal outcome which is below average and or not considered to be in line with expectation for respective job roles. So quickly confirm your own answers. So for question 45, that says performance incentives or bonuses shall be paid after the annual appraisal results have been fully signed by the accounting officer of respective MDAs and the head of civil service of the federation. So the head of civil service of the federation and the accounting officer for the MDA shall sign before the incentives shall be given to the officer. And then for question 45, which of these best defines underperformance? Of course, an underperformance is an appraisal outcome. It's an appraisal outcome which is below average and or not considered to be in line with expectation for respective job roles. That is underperformance, means the person has underperformed. So when the outcome does not meet the expectation for the job role, so it's below average, so we say the person has underperformed. So for question 46, Which of the following is not applicable for an underperformance result? Which is not applicable for an underperformance result? A. It can feed into the implementation of performance improvement plans or other consequences for underperformance individuals. No, this is applicable. So when there is an underperformance, so you are talking about performance improvement plans. So this is applicable. B. All identified underperformed officers shall be called upon to appear before a panel. No, this is not applicable. So this is not applicable. Then let's look at C. All underperformers shall be treated on a case-by-case basis. Exactly. All of them, every underperformance shall be treated on case-by-case basis, because they are all different issues, different cases. So D, an employee whose performance of concern, appraisers must take prompt action to gain an understanding of root cause via the periodic performance monitoring conversation, during which they shall also provide help. Of course, yes, this is also applicable. So question 47, which of these is not true about the records generated during any of the phases of the annual performance management cycle? So A, they shall remain the property of the federal government of Nigeria. So we're saying which of them is not true. Then B, they shall be administered in line with good administrative document and data management practices. C, they shall be publicized. And D, they shall follow data management policies. So which is not applicable. So quickly confirming your answers, going back to question 46 that say which of the following is not applicable for an underperformance result. For an underperformance result, I think we've seen that. So which is not applicable? We had you can feed, of course, B, all identified. So it's not applicable. All is not applicable. All identified underperformance officers should be called. No, it is not applicable. They are all one. They are all applicable. So for 47, that say which of this is not called about the records generated during any of the phases of the annual performance management. They shall remain the property of the federal government of Nigeria. Of course, yes, they shall remain the property of the federal government of Nigeria. B, they shall be administered in line with good administrative documents and policy. Of course, this is also true. Of course, this is also true. Then C, they shall be publicized. No. So this is not applicable. They shall not be publicized. Then question, that is C. 46B, 47C. 48 now. Whose responsibility shall it be to review and manage outcomes of annual performance appraisals for members of staff? Who reviews and manages the annual performance record? So A, the Civil Service Commission. B, the Central Coordinating Body. C, the Head of Civil Service of the Federation. And D, Senior Staff Committee and Junior Staff Committee. Whose responsibility is it to review and manage outcomes? Then 49, who is responsible for the regular monitoring of compliance of performance? The body responsible of compliance, and also we have the body that know the two of them. So one monitors and the other one review. So who is responsible for the regular monitoring of compliance of the performance management practice at all levels in the federal public service for feedback and improvement? A, the Head of Civil Service of the Federation. B, the Central Coordinating Body. C, the Civil Service Commission. And D, Senior Staff Committee and Junior Staff Committee. Question 50, where shall the Central Coordinating Body responsible for monitoring? Okay, this is already giving the answer to that. Where shall the Central Coordinating Body responsible for monitoring effectiveness of the performance management process be domiciled? A, Federal Civil Service Commission. B, Office of the Permanent Secretary. C, Office of the Human Resource Management. And D, Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation. So quickly confirming the answer, your options. So for question 48 that says, whose responsibility shall it be to review and manage outcomes of annual performance appraisals for members of staff? So the person responsible is the senior staff committee and junior staff committee. So they are to review. And manage the outcomes of the annual performance appraisals. So junior staff committee and senior staff committee review the outcome of the appraisals. Why for that is option D. Why for question 49 that says who is responsible for the regular monitoring? Of course, for the regular monitoring of compliance is the responsibility of the central coordinating body. So there shall be a central coordinating body responsible for regular monitoring of compliance of the performance management practice at all levels in the Federal Civil Service Commission. That is option B, central coordinating body. And this also stated it 50 says, where shall the central coordinating body responsible for monitoring effectiveness of the performance management process be domiciled? It shall be domiciled at the office of the head of civil service of the Federation. That is option D. So the central controlling body, the central coordinating body shall be domiciled in the office of the head of civil service of the Federation. So the central coordinating body that monitors the effectiveness of performance. So question 51. Escalated cases from the review and management outcomes of annual performance appraisals for members of staff will be referred to where for resolution. So the escalated cases from the review and management outcomes of annual performance appraisals for members of staff will be referred to dash resolution. So it will be referred to A, the appraisal committee of head of civil service of the Federation and Federal Civil Service Commission. B, the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office. C, the appraisal committee of the ministries. And D, the career management office or head of civil service of the Federation. So 52, in terms of performance review, how can the employees that have been away on approved absence for a part of the performance period be treated? A, the period of their absence will be ignored. B, their review for the year will be merged for the following year. C, they shall have a review session with their superior upon their return to work, during which they shall set or review their performance targets for the rest of the year, and the rest of the performance management process steps shall be applied throughout the remainder of the performance period. And then D, they shall have an online review session with their supervisor, and rest of the performance management process steps shall be applied throughout the remainder of the year. So quickly confirm your options. So for question 51 that says escalated cases from the review and management outcomes of annual performance appraisal for officers of staff will be referred to, it will be referred to the appraisal committee of head of civil service of the Federation and Federal Civil Service of the Federal Civil Service Commission. So the escalated cases will be referred to the appraisal committee of head of civil service of the Federation and Federal Civil Service Commission. And for question 52 that says in terms of performance review, how can employees that have been away on approved absence for a part of the performance period be treated? So of course they will have their review when they return. So they shall have a review session. So when they are when they now return, they shall have their own review session with their supervisor upon their return to work, during which they shall set or review their performance targets for the rest of the year, and the rest of the performance management process steps shall be applied throughout the remainder of the performance period. That is C. So question 53. Who shall coordinate the implementation of performance management plan actions? Who shall coordinate the implementation of the performance improvement plan actions? A, the Director of Human Resource in collaboration with appraisers. B, the Permanent Secretary or Head of Extraministerial Office in collaboration with the Director of Human Resource. C, the Head of Civil Service the head of service in collaboration with permanent secretary or head of extraministerial offices. Then the permanent secretary or head of extraministerial office in collaboration with the director of human resource. And question 54, which of these is not a guideline for the review of performance appraisal by the junior staff committee and senior staff committee? A, the committee shall ensure that appraisals are fair, objective, and effectively capture demonstrated performance as measured against specified annual performance expectations or targets. B, the detailed criteria and weighing for appraisal of officers shall be as specified in the guidelines in the guidelines to the performance management policy. And C, appraisal of officers shall be conducted in strict confidence and shall comply with employee personal data privacy protection rules and guidelines. And of course, D, the committee shall meet twice yearly to attend performance appraisal related matters. So quickly confirming your own option, your own answer. So going to question 53 that says, who shall coordinate the implementation of the performance improvement plan actions? And of course, the director of human resource in collaboration with the appraisers shall coordinate the implementation. The wife of question 54 that says, which of these is not a guideline for the review of performance appraisals by junior staff committee and senior staff committee? Now let's look at the options. So we have A, the committee shall ensure that appraisals are fair. Of course, this is a guideline, so they have to ensure that the appraisals are fair, objective, and effectively capture demonstrated performance as measured against specified annual performance expectation or target. So this is one of the guidelines. Then B, that says the detailed criteria and weighing for appraisal of officers shall be as specified in guidelines to the performance management policy. Of course, this is also a guideline. Then C, that says appraisal of officers shall be conducted in strict confidence and shall comply with employee personnel data privacy protection rule and guideline. This is also a guideline. So we are left with D. And this says the committee shall meet twice yearly. No, it's not yearly. They meet often. They meet from time to time to attend to performance appraisals. So the correct option is D. D is not a guideline. So that takes us to question 55. And it says, which of these is not correct with regards to performance improvement plan? So, which is not correct with regards to performance improvement plan? A, during and at the end of a performance improvement plan or process period, individuals shall be given formal feedback on the status of their performance, whether significant improvements have been noted in their current jobs or if other actions are warranted. Of course, improvement plan. This is correct. So let's see option B. Gap closure interventions shall be jointly agreed by the appraiser and appraisee and captured in performance improvement plan. Of course, this is also true. So both the appraiser and appraisee always go into discussions and arrive to agreement. And whatever is agreed is captured in performance improvement plan. So that is also correct. Then C, it is the sole responsibility of appraiser to recommend officers for gap closure. No, it is not the sole of the appraiser. Of course, we see here that both of them, the appraiser and appraisee, will always be on discussion and agree. So I think, so not even going further, the correct option that is not correct is option C. It is not the sole responsibility of the appraiser. Why this says employee required to undergo performance improvement action shall be notified in writing through confidential process. This is true too. So the right option is C. That is not okay. So that's good. So with that, we've come to the end of the quiz. Thank you for staying tuned and getting to this point. Now, if you are yet to hit the subscribe button as you are rounding up, still again check your screen. If there's anywhere written subscribe, you quickly, please kindly hit the subscribe button. The essence is for you to get our materials in real time. So once you subscribe, you're not paying a dime. It's for no cost. And we took our time and strength to produce this material for you. So for you to now have it, if you value the material, if you like it, is to click that button, subscribe. So by doing so, it will now enable YouTube to make available our materials to your YouTube page. So both the ones we previously uploaded before now and the ones that we upload after now, as soon as you uploaded, YouTube will notify you, and it will be available on your page. All you need to is to from your page, you search, you scroll, you see it. So that is the essence of subscribing. You are not paying a dime for it. And of course, if you have found this material of value, and of course if you have gotten up to this point, means you really liked it. So give us a thumb up. So you can see the like button, click on it to give us a thumb up. Of course, we'll also be glad to have your comment, because your comment gives us a guide on the progress. And of course, if you have value for it, your friends, your colleagues will also have value for it. So share it also to them. Let them also benefit from it. Thank you. And what is next on public service rule? We shall be looking at petitions and appeals. Petitions and appeal. So thank you and God bless you. Our aim is for you to succeed in your examination, whether seeking for entrance into public service rule, into public service, or seeking to do well and pass your promotion exam. That is our aim, and that is why we took the pain to put all this at no cost to you. Thank you so much. God bless you, and see you in the next episode.